Well, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to compost a ton of manure. Now, this is horse manure, and I'm sure this would work with other manures, but my horse manure that I get is mixed with straw, the actual poo, the wee of the horse, obviously weeing, and then the odd little bit of hay, which the horse haven't eaten. Now I need to move this big pile here to where I'm going to compost it. This is where it got dropped off. If you're wondering how you could possibly get your hands on this much manure, if you're in the city it might be kind of difficult, but if you do live kind of in the countryside, probably locally there's somebody with a horse that would be quite happy to get rid of their manure for you, and they potentially might drop it off for you. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this manure moved, and then I'll explain how to compost it effectively. And this process only takes about 30 days and then you can use it. Yeah. Well, I'm now going to explain to you all the equipment you need, or what I would suggest you have to compost manure like this. Now, obviously, I'm going to be doing this by hand. However, if you do have access to a tractor or something mechanical that you can turn this with, then brilliant. That'll save you a lot of time and effort, definitely a lot of effort. But this way is hard work, it's hard graft, there's no getting away from that. But it does the job nicely. I'll show you some results of it in a minute, and then yeah. But so the equipment you need: pair of gloves, essential if you're turning it by hand, very essential. If not, you'll end up with blisters, cuts, whatever. Don't want that. Protect your hands. You need, I would suggest, definitely a manure fork. Now, if you've got a garden fork, one of them sort of short, you know, almost like got a spade handle on it, I would suggest definitely get yourself a manure fork. 10 times easier. You've got a lot more reach with this thing, so it requires less effort to actually lift the manure up, and that will definitely save your back and whatnot. Now, this one may seem a little bit silly, but I'm telling you now, make sure to always bring a bottle of water with you when you're turning your manure, or make sure you can get to water, because this is hard work, and especially if you're doing it in the summer when it's hot and sunny. You know, your body, you will be sweating a lot. Next thing you need, obviously, if you're getting it delivered, let's just say outside your front garden and you want it out the back of your garden, you're going to need some kind of thing to move it. So a wheelbarrow, or in this case I've got a little pulley cart thing, because I wanted to move more manure at once, because you know, I'm doing this a lot. I'm doing this every month. What else do you need? Oh yeah, the last thing is very, very important, and that is water for the manure. Now, obviously this is going to be quite dry because it's just come out of a stable, and you know, other than pee going on it, it's pretty much had no water on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start piling this up here. I'm going to show you how I pile it up, and then we're going to be tipping over probably about 10 cans of water over this to really get it saturated and get that moisture in there. First of all, I'm going to have a quick drink. I've already moved loads of manure today. I'll show you what I've done in a minute. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this out of here. So when I'm getting this out, there is a technique to do it. I'm pulling it out. You may find some big clumps in your manure, so best way to do it, smack it. It's hard work, but it gets out them lumps. That breaks up the clumps of straw and that. See that big lump of manure? I just broke that up into about 4. And this way you get the most air into it as well. You know, you're really going to get air into this pile. Now, if for some reason, let's just say, you're not able to do all this, obviously, if you can get that person to deliver the manure for you in the spot where you want it to be composted, you can just leave it in a big pile, you know, but you are not going to get as nice of compost, or, you know, composted manure. I don't like calling manure compost because it really doesn't end up like compost. Compost is a lot different. Compost is a lot more fluffy. It's a lot more light. You know, this becomes really heavy and sort of dense, which you'll see in a moment. But anyway, now you've got the basics. I'm going to get this all out of here, and then I'll put some water on it, and I'll show you the different stages as we go. Just as I press record on the camera, there's a jet come over. Typical. Anyway, I've now brought a second lot over. I've still got a lot more to bring, but what I'm doing, as I'm taking it out from where I'm moving it from, so like a wheelbarrow, or in my case the trailer thing, what I'm doing is I'll dump it all, make a big mound in the middle, and then I'll put my fork in and I'll pull the material out of the middle, just like this, into sort of like the edges, if that makes sense, like that. There we go. And then what that does is all this material on the outside that falls on the outside, it then just tends to fall inside, or some of it does, which is obviously the actual poo. And I just find that by putting that inside, it just contains it a little bit better, it heats up better, and all that type of stuff. Now, I'm now going to go ahead and put a couple of cans of water on this because it needs it. It's very dry. It's actually now sat where it's been left for about 2 days. So yeah, and it's been really hot weather. We've had no rain or anything. So it is very dry. Makes it easier to move, but it now does need to become wet. So I'll get a couple of cans of water and then we'll put them on. So here we go. Couple cans of water. I like doing this part. It's like a rest. So I took the head off of the watering can this time. So we're just going to put it on a little bit more heavily. Hopefully that should then get down to the bottom of the pile. Making sure this is soaked is quite important. I think when you first get it, you can't really over wet it, but later on that won't need hardly any water, if any. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly show you what manure looks like, or my composted manure looks like after 30 days, and then I'll show you what my manure looks like after 1 year of just basically being turned, then put aside and just left for a year after it's cooled down. So I'll show you that now. The reason why I'm going to be showing you this is because there's not a massive difference. I have had to bump up the ISO here because it's a bit dark, but this is 30-day-old manure, you know, composted in the way that I do. And obviously, as you can see, this is a huge difference. You can't see hardly any straw in here, or hay. There weren't much hay, but hardly any straw in here, and that is good to go. If you're going to spread that in winter and you're not going to plant in it until spring, that's absolutely perfect stuff. Now this right here I'll quickly show you. I've just bagged it up as I'm going to be taking a little bit to a local old man who, or older man should I say, who needs some of it. But you know, that's just been sitting there for a year, so it really doesn't look that much different to after 30 days. You know, that's what I'm saying. It is pretty much good to go after 30 days. Well, I'm going to have to go deliver some manure to a local old boy, like I just said, in the village. He's getting on now, he's 76, but he's still growing his produce, which is great. So I help him out by taking him some manure every year for his patch. And he didn't manure his patch for 10 years, and this just tells you how good manure is. He didn't actually manure his patch for 10 years, and then he manured it, and that really boosted his patch. He said that was the best crop of potatoes he's had in years. So that just shows you that manure really does have some power to, you know, produce you better yields. Now, I will be talking a bit more about aminopyralids later. This is something that farmers do put on crops, such as the straw that's in the manure, and also hay, mainly hay. And it's basically what it is a herbicide that they put onto the field, and then that prevents anything but grass crops from growing. And obviously that doesn't work in our case, and that does stay in the manure even after you've composted it, and it goes through the horse or the animal, whatever's consuming it, and it comes out the other end of them. And then obviously you stick it on your vegetable beds, and then you can't grow anything, so you don't want that. So here's a time lapse of me moving the manure from A to B. You're only seeing B, but yeah, moving it away. So there we go, there's one lot, and I do a second lot. Now I think I do a bit more than this, I can't remember fully, but anyway, I end up putting a load of water on it. You'll see me do that in a minute. And there's a combine running in the background, so unfortunately I can't have the audio on, but enjoy some music. Here we go. Combine is really loud. I made this pile on the 13th of August. It's now the 16th of August, and this is 3 days after we have made the pile. Now I'm taking all that material from the outside of the edges of the pile, putting it to where the centre will be, putting a bit more water on because it looked dry, and then moving the centre to the outside. And as you can see, it is very hot at this early stage. Then I'm going to go ahead and put a bit more water on, and the tarp goes back on. And then 3 days later, on the 20th of August, we're on to our third turn. Now again, outside the pile to the inside, and the inside to the outside. Bit more water, and cover goes back on. Now 3 days later, we're on the fourth turn, and it is the 23rd of August. And again, same repetition once again. And then 4 days later, on the 27th of August, this is our fifth turn. Again, outside to inside, bit more water maybe if needed. And then that moves us on to 7 days later, the sixth turn, the 3rd of September. And basically repetition again. If you don't have a compost thermometer, this is something that I should have said at the start. If you don't have a compost thermometer, it might be ideal to get one with your first pile, just to understand about how the heat starts to get hot, then it cools down, and just to know roughly when it does that. I know because I've done this a lot, and I monitored my first couple of piles, so I know what's going on, and I can physically see by the amount of steam that comes out of it as I'm turning it. And on that last turn, there was hardly any steam at all. So now we are on, the day is the 13th of September. Like I said, it has been 31 days. And this would be our last turn. However, today I'm not turning the pile because it's not necessary. I'll turn it when I get a new lot of manure to save me, moving it now, because I've got some stuff to do today. But basically, what I would suggest to do at this point, if you are making more piles of manure and you've got limited space like me, in terms of this is my dedicated manure composting area, then obviously move this pile to somewhere that it can just sit at for until you're ready to use it, basically. Now you can obviously carry on turning it if you wish, it's up to you, but I think once it's cooled down to temperature where it's just basically neutral to the outside temperature, then that is absolutely fine. It doesn't really need turning. You can just leave it, the worms will hopefully get in it and start composting it down. Now, when can you use this in your beds? Well, after day 30, as long as you've done it right, which I'm now going to show you what it looks like, you can use this pretty much that day. But I would suggest, if you're going to do that, don't plant in it for 2 or 3 months. I'd suggest putting this in ideally October, maybe November, maybe December. You can get away with it in January, but I wouldn't go any later than that, just because obviously that'll then only have a month to actually compost further in the ground. If you've got stuff that's a year old, then maybe January is more suitable. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this manure. I know you're dying to have a look, and then I'll explain to you about aminopyralid tests, and then we'll be good to go. I don't have my gloves on right now. Oh, this is going to be a sticky mess, I think. Now with manure, you're not really getting that sort of fine compost that you might know. It's sort of like a sticky mess, really. That's what I find it to be anyway. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the pile. Now this is going to be quite moist. We've had quite a lot of rain over the last couple of days, thankfully. But I'm going to give you a bit of a closer look, and I may get my manure fork out, just move a little bit around, and we'll have a little look at it. Yeah. So this is where all the actual gardeners get very excited on one of them. I love manure, I love compost, it's all brilliant stuff, and it's definitely worth putting in your garden every single year, if you can. Now, this stuff is most definitely breaking down. Now, I know I'm not doing this with gloves on, kind of disgusting, I know, but it's all part of the fun. So, as you can see, this is originally an actual piece of manure, like the actual poo, and this is broken down nicely. It's not fully broken down by any means, but like I said, if you leave that in the ground, whether you dig it in, whether you put it on the top of your soil, or whether you just leave it in a pile somewhere, hopefully worms will find this, because this is a brilliant food for them, and obviously they know that, and they'll come in and start breaking it down further. Obviously, why did this camera just go off? As they're breaking it down and as they're eating this manure, they are actually also pooping it out, so they're creating more manure, but worm castings and droppings and stuff, and that is what you want in your garden. Right, so now we've taken a look at this manure. I'm just going to get a manure fork and just flip one bit over so you can see it. Alright, well I'm back with my manure fork, and like I said, I'm not turning this pile today because it isn't warm enough. But if I grab this and just flip it upside down like that, as you can see, no steam's coming out or anything. So, this ground's a bit hard. As you can see, it's quite wet, the manure. Now you can see some remnants of straw. Now this straw is fine, it is breaking down. You can see it's very, very brittle and breaking down quite nicely. And these pieces of the straw, if I pick out like 10 pieces here, look, that ain't a bit of straw. But if I pick out pieces, none of them are bigger than about 10 centimeters long. So that's fine. Before they were big pieces, but now they're broken down to the point where they're small. So I would say that's brilliant to put on your beds. Technically, anything like a compost or a manure is a mulch if you put it on the top. Obviously, if you are a dig gardener and you dig it in, then that's, well, that's just adding organic matter into the soil structure. But yeah, if you put it on the top, it is acting as a mulch. It'll keep the moisture in, microbes will be happy, and so will the worms. Anyway, I've done enough talking. I will have to do some more, but I'm going to show you how to test for aminopyralids now, so you don't get in a bit of a muddle. Because if you do put this on your beds, basically you'll only grow a certain crop for 5 years because your ground will be useless to anything else. That's what aminopyralids are. They are scary things, or scary stuff, but there are things you can do to test your manure to make sure it's okay. Well, I'm sorry about the lighting if it's a bit weird because it's coming through the trees right now. But anyway, these are the things that you're going to need. You're going to need an empty bucket. You're going to need a bucket with some water in it. And you're going to need a sieve. You're going to need a big stick or something to mush it down with. Probably a big stick. And something to be able to pick up your manure with, whether that's your hands or whether that's your manure fork. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a bit of the manure. By the way, this is aminopyralid test. We're just going to grab a bit of the manure, probably not that much actually, probably that much will do. So just pop it in your bucket. So you don't need a lot. There's no specific measurements in this or anything, it's just done to the eye. Then you're going to grab your water and you're just going to put a decent amount of water over your manure. Now, again, no measurements, just what you feel is best. As long as you've got quite a bit in there, that should be good. So grab your stick and just put it in there and just give it a good mash around. So you're making like a liquid manure. Bit disgusting, I know, but it's what you have to do. I hope I ain't just broke the bottom of the bucket. It sounded like I might have done. Oh dear. Hopefully we'll get enough for this test. Right, anyway, I think that'll do. So that's our liquid manure. And then we're just going to get an empty bucket with nothing in it. And we're going to strain some of the liquid out of this bucket into your other bucket. Just fill it up. Now this may take a few minutes, so just keep doing this. Probably fill your sieve up about 3 or 4 times. Allow the water to go through, and then I'm going to show you what to do with the water. So I'll get back to you once I've got enough liquid to conduct the experiment. Now, personally, I would say enough liquid is a cup full. Just like I said, there's no specific measurements. Just a cup full is enough, like your average tea mug. That should be enough to a 10-litre can of water. Ooh, big spider in there. Right, so there we go. I've just filled up my watering can, and what we're going to go ahead and do is take the nozzle off, because if not we might get a blocked nozzle. And we're just going to take our manure liquid, what we've just created, and we're just going to pop some of this into our can. There we go. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a swirl around. You can do this with a stick if you like. There we go, it should be good. Now I'm going to go take you over to my sacrificial bed, and I'll be explaining what that is in just a second, and the reason why you should have one if you compost manure. To be fair, I'm not going to lie though, you can find amino pyrrolid in any compost, so it might be worth doing this. You can make liquid compost, teas and stuff. Might be worth doing this to most of your compost, even your homemade compost. But I mean, I don't take it that far, but maybe you should, just in case. So here is some old potatoes that I put in my sacrificial bed. Like I said, I call this my sacrificial bed because this is basically what I use it for. It gets a beautiful feed of liquid manure, but it also acts as a test. Now, I wouldn't put this anywhere else in your garden until you know it's safe, and then you can obviously use it elsewhere. Also, another test you can quickly do, I'm just going to explain to you, is if you're making a new bed, if it's a small bed somewhere, just put a little bit of the manure in the bottom, the actual manure, and just see if your plants like it or not. Now, if they die off quickly, then you know that there might be a problem, so you can do further tests. Yeah, let's go ahead and put this manure on, manure tea, so it'll look like a dark brown colour. An ideal plant to do these tests with is actually beans. If you like growing beans, runner beans, any type of bean, I do believe, they do not like amino pyrrolid. So if you've got amino pyrrolid in your soil, that'll be it. They'll just be killed off. So that is definitely a very good test plant to use. But anyway, there we go. That is the test conducted. Now I would suggest waiting probably 2, maybe 3 weeks, just to be sure that you haven't got that amino pyrrolid in the soil. Now if you do have it in the soil, basically the plant stems and everything will go black. Maybe potatoes are not the best thing to do it on, because potatoes suffer with blight, and that also makes the plant stems go black. So I would suggest, like I said, probably a bed of beans or something like that is a lot better. But yeah, also if you do grow beans in really cold temperatures, so let's just say you're doing this in the winter and you think, oh, I'll just grow some beans in the house. If they do get exposed to cold temperatures, bean stems and the leaves will go black as well. So again, that may not be a very controlled experiment. But yeah, that is how to compost horse manure and test it for amino pyrrolid. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's taken a few days to make, so please drop a like and maybe subscribe, and I appreciate you for watching, and I hope you've learned something. Don't forget, if you make the compost manure, spread it October, November, December time, ready to plant in spring. Thanks for watching and goodbye.